Alright guys, here again for number 5 of the NCPL Commander Draft Tournament. Number 5 team analysis or draft analysis. Today is going to be Louis Nordone. Louis's been around for a little while now in the NCPL, so his strategies usually vary, but they kind of have a pattern if you guys notice. But yeah, let's hop into it. So I scored Louis' team a total of 35. Now, like I say in every video, just because it's a 35, which is not low by any means, I would say low, you're hitting the 20s. Just because it's a 35 does not mean this gives you a free opportunity. So this is a free win team. His team has some issues, but his team is very, very scary. Can easily drop out of hand. So starting with his offense, I rated his offense an 8. Now, offense is clearly led by his captain, which is Blastoise, probably one of the best tier 3s yet. The Blastoise with access to Shell Smash in a low tier draft like this is completely overwhelming to prep for, especially with the allowance of hidden power. It's going to be an insanely hard Pokemon to prep for. But we'll cover how to do that in the maybe later. We'll cover how to do that. But yes, offense clearly led by his Blastoise, with the ability to have Flip Turn, Hydro Pump, Skull. Hydro Pump is generally what you want to do if you're going to be, sweeping through a team. Ice Beam, Flash Cannon, Dark Pulse. Then Hidden Power. It can also be a physical set. Like I said, it has Flip Turn and also has Earthquake. This Pokemon is a nightmare to fucking prep for. So, alongside that, on the offense, basically every single one of his Pokemon has an offensive prowess to it except Volibee. And to some extent, you could say Volibee could do it, but just not at the same level that Mandibuzz could pull an offensive set. But yeah, like I said, basically his whole team has offensive presence, so that kind of makes it hard to prep for, and that's kind of why his team isn't scored much lower, even though there isn't like a clear concept of what on his team synergy. It's just a hard team to prepare for based on the fact you don't know if something's going to be coming offensively or defensively. So of course you got Diancie there, who can be defensive or offensive stats. Calm Mind Trick Room is a serious problem, especially if versing a fast team like Matt's per se. That might be an issue that Matt needs to look out for, as Louis' team actually does do well with Trick Room. Doublade, Diancie, and Turtonator and Lurantis all really benefiting from Trick Room. So if anything, I feel like that's the clear idea for his team. Veils and Trick Room look really menacing for him in the offensive section here. So, like I was saying, Diancie, offensive or defensive, but Calm Mind Trick excuse me, Trick Room is going to be a serious problem. Not to mention, it also gets Iron Defense and Body Press. So with its 150 base defense, you get 1 Iron Defense in, and then you start Body Pressing if the opponent doesn't have a ground type, or ghost type to deal with that. That's a serious issue to deal with, especially a Rest Sleep Talk set. With its overall bulk, that's a really hard Pokemon to deal with if you don't got a ghost type Pokemon, if he brings that set, of course. So Doublade, kind of similar, very slow, but very high defense, allowing it to set up, especially with the access to Eviolite. Doublade usually will almost always be able to set up a Swords Dance. Sorry, I just want to bring up Doublade because I don't have his moveset written down in my handy dandy notes, which, yes, I take a lot of notes. I don't normally just wing this. So yeah, Doublade being able to set up Swords Dance, having access to Priority and Shadow Sneak, now getting Close Combat or Sacred Sword, which Sacred Sword, mind you, is going to be great against those Pokemon that are Iron defensing. If that's something that he needs to watch out for. Choice Band, Sacred Sword is going to be pretty devastating on a team that thinks they're going to iron defense up and sweep. Especially the Registeel. That's going to be a serious one that he should consider to bring that type of set with. But yes, Doublade having the Shadow Sneak, Iron Head, Close Combat, Sacred Sword. Does have iron defense, but unfortunately does not get access to body press. I think that would make it extremely strong. Has access to Eviolite plus its base 150 defense. That would be really hard to deal with. But Doublade getting actually quite a bit of coverage here. Fighting, Steel, Ghost, Flying. So we got Psychic, Rock. Yeah. It also, now it can't do it like it's full evolution, Aegislash, but it does have the ability to be an annoying toxic protector. With Eviolite, it'd be pretty annoying to deal with. Something else to look out for that is very prominent in its full evolution is Weakness Policy. While I don't think it's going to be doing it quite as well, that is something that he could do. Weakness Policy, Automatize. Is that the one? Yeah, Automatize, and then potentially sweep with Shadow Sneak or Iron Head. But like I said, nothing like its counterpart or its full evolution. I don't think it's likely he brings that type of set, but definitely something. Louis likes to bring some interesting stuff in some of his matches, so definitely don't overlook that set. Moving along here, Passimian, classic offensive Pokemon. Very annoying because its ability Defiant is going to allow Louis to have those Aurora Veils up for as long as he possibly wants. He could set up rocks, but I feel like Aurora Veil is going to be the top priority for his team. Rocks is still very important in allowing Blastoise or any other Shell Smasher to sweep without having to worry about Focus Sash. And Passimian being perfect for blocking those Pokemon that are trying to get them off the field. Now, Passimian has a lot of coverage. This is a really great Pokemon to pick up as a tier 4. I mean, its speed it's slow in a draft where there's 2 other tiers ahead of it, but in this draft, its speed is actually not too bad. I believe it's around the 80s here. I'm just gonna bring this up. Yeah, base 80, so that reaches around 280, I believe. Now that's pretty good in this draft. With the ability to Choice Scarf, I think that makes it a really threatening Pokemon in cleaning up, especially because its coverage. It can cover basically anything that your team needs, including coverage for himself with Gunk Shot, being able to make sure fairies don't switch in for free. Has access to U-Turn, and I think it's one of 3 of the only Pokemon on his team that have any sort of momentum in that section, like Flip Turn, Volt Turn, U-Turn, all that stuff. He's probably Passimian's gonna be the one that's gonna be utilizing this most, alongside maybe Volibee. But as I was saying, tons of coverage, Close Combat, U-Turn, Knockoff, Rock Slide, Earthquake, Gunk Shot, Seed Bomb. What else we got here? Iron Head. Obviously, I imagine you're going to be using Gunk Shot more times than not over Iron Head, unless, it's like Mawile or something like that. But even then, Iron Head's doing nothing either. So, yeah, you got plethora of coverage here. He also has the ability to set up with Bulk Up, which is very good for him too, because his defense is actually quite good. It's a base 90 and base 100 HP. That's pretty good. And in a low tier draft like this, Bulk Up's pretty devastating on a Pokemon like that. Bulk Up Drain Punch would be pretty hard to break if the opponent doesn't have a reliable wall or tank to cover him, which, like I said, is very hard to cover with anyways because he has so much coverage. So I expect Passimian to come to a lot of his games. Next up, offense, you have Vanillix. I won't get too much into every single Pokemon, otherwise this will be like a 50-minute video, but Vanillix generally going to be your Aurora Veil setter, but Also has access to 100% Blizzard and Freeze Dry. Outside of that, I don't see it being his like prominent offensive threat. I feel like it's a very supportive Pokemon for his team. I think it also gets Heal Bell, if I'm correct here. Yeah, I have lots of things written in my notes, but not everything. Also does get Ice Shard, which is really great. The priority on his team is really nice, actually. Where are you? Does not get Heal Bell. What was I thinking it got? I was almost certain it got Heal. Oh, now I'm just throwing for a loop. Yeah, now I'm just throwing for a loop here. Almost certain it. I'm thinking of a different. Anyways, gets Taunt, Explosion. That's basically rounds up its offense. It's not gonna do a whole much more. Flash Cannon as well. I could see Magnet Rise being decent for his team, but like I said, a very supportive Pokemon for his team in bringing that Aurora Veil. So, Lurantis, this is one of the big ones that I wanted to talk about. A Pokemon that can get quickly out of hand, especially behind Trick Room. Its ability Contrary and the access to Leaf Storm Superpower. This allows it to run an Assault Vest set, and Leaf Storm Superpower basically anything that's not like ×4 resisting. It eventually is gonna really hurt. Lurantis actually having quite good bulk as well, and then adding that Assault Vest, it'll be, like I said, quickly get out of hand if you don't deal with it fast. So base 70 HP, base 90 defense, base 90 special defense, very good. So especially, again, I'm going to continue to mention in a low tier draft like this, that is a very strong set that it's able to use, and those are good stats in this type of draft. So not to mention it gets support moves like Knock Off, support move as in knock off their items. Eviolite is going to be a big one to knock off, making sure Moltres doesn't come in for free with the threat of getting knocked off will be very good and important. So yeah, that's basically where its set ends. We don't know the gender of this, but Lurantis also does get Defog, and it's his second Defogger, and why I'm putting emphasis on this is because he only has 2. So Volibee being the other one, Lurantis being secondary. So this puts a lot of pressure on Volibee. I don't expect Lurantis to be your Defogger unless he needs to bring double Defog for whatever reason. But again, Louis can pressure Defog himself in setting up Aurora Veil and Rocks and force the opponent to set up Defog. So, but yeah, anyways, Lurantis does also have access to like Swords Dance and stuff like that, which I still think is great if you're not using Contrary. So, it's really it's gonna come down to Lurantis using Contrary under Trick Room if he wants to make it a really viable Pokemon on his team. So like I said earlier, Volibee can be used offensively, but nothing like Mandibuzz. So not too much to mention there. I definitely do not think he should bring it offensively. Nowhere do I think that's good on his team. Mandibuzz is his only Defogger. His ability to pivot with Mandibuzz, and if the opponent doesn't have access to knockoff, Volibee will actually be pretty annoying. Its stats are actually really good for the not being fully evolved and access to Eviolite. So let me just read its stats off before we move on here, though. Yeah, so base 70 HP, base 75 defense, base 65 special defense, plus Eviolite. So and the access to Overcoat will allow it to be able to come in while Hail's up and not worry about that chip. Turtonator and Zangoose, though. Turtonator being Shell Smasher, Dragon type, slow as hell, definitely going to be behind Trick Room. And then Zangoose, like we seen earlier in the week 1, is actually a really, really strong threat in this tier. If utilized correctly, can easily clean up a team. So I definitely hope he brings that a lot and uses it as a cleanup, or at least a wall breaker to allow Simeon, Scarf, or Blastoise to finally break through a team. But yeah, so his offense is an 8. Now, there isn't too much synergy between his offense, but like I said, every single one of his Pokemon except one is an offensive threat, and that's what makes his offense hard to prep for. So defense, I rated a 7. Back here. Okay. That's my brain juice. Okay, so defense, I rated a 7. Similar to his offense, there isn't a strong synergy with his defense, but the defensive Pokemon that he has are very, very bulky, and like I was saying earlier, if you don't have knockoff, Volibee will be extremely annoying to deal with, as is its evolution Mandibuzz. So Diancie having base 150 in both defense and special defense, pretty sure that's what it is. Now I'm doubting myself here. Yeah, I was doubting myself that it was 100 in its defense and special defense, and then 150 in its attack and special attack, but it's the opposite. It was exactly like I said, 150 base defense, 150 base. So that is extremely high. It does only have base 50 HP, but with that defense so high, it's not the biggest deal. Similar to Toxapex. Toxapex obviously gets Generator, and this doesn't. But Diancie having Stealth Rock, Moonblast, Diamond Storm, Body Press, Draining Kiss. It's a pretty good defensive Pokemon. It'll be pretty annoying to deal with and chip down, especially if it runs Toxic Protect, Stealth Rock, Diamond Storm. That'd be pretty annoying. But defensively, it's just a wall with rocks that you got to chip down. I mean, not too much to worry about as long as you scout the set, but still very, very, very bold. Next we have, who do we got just here? You could potentially say Doublade as a defensive Pokemon, like I said, with its Toxic Protect set, but again, any Pokemon can Toxic Protect. It does get Eviolite, so it makes it a little bit better, plus Shadow Sneak, allowed to clean up those kills. But generally, I don't see it too much as a defensive option for his team, unless it's to beat out a Fairy type. Volibee being the next defensive Pokemon for him, and probably the primary defensive Pokemon for his team, in tanking probably both physical and special attacks. If they're not super effective, I expect Volibee to be brought. So with Defog, Roost, I think that's what makes it a primary defensive Pokemon for his team, making sure rocks aren't up and Blastoise can, make sure it doesn't break that Focus Sash if he decides to run Sash over White Herb. Make sure his team doesn't get chipped down. He doesn't really have recovery except Volibee, so he really doesn't appreciate chip damage. So Volibee making sure those rocks don't stay up. Now, one thing to note here is Volibee needs to run Eviolite in most cases. It can run heavy duty boots, but generally it's going to be running Eviolite, so just remember Volibee's still going to be hit by the rocks too. So like I said, his team really doesn't appreciate rocks. Volibee is there to circumvent that and make sure those rocks stay off the field, or he can pressure them to defog by putting Veil up. But generally, Volibee is going to be making sure rocks aren't on the field on his side anyway. Outside of that, that's where his defense ends. He could get pretty tricky and run some weird defensive options like defensive Lurantis. Yeah, he could run defensive Lurantis, but the thing with Lurantis, it does have Defog and Synthesis, but it does not have Leech Seed or any powder moves, so it doesn't have Stump Powder or anything like that. Pretty, what do you say, thin in terms of what it can do defensively. So bringing Lurantis defensively, unless it's walling his whole team or something like that, maybe, but even then, you could just sweep his team. If it's walling his team, it'd be better to bring Lurantis as that contrary sweeper. So, yeah, but only having two really defensive options for Pokemon, he would need to get pretty tricky with the other Pokemon. Turtonator is available to be a defensive Pokemon as well. It does have some niche moves for niche moves defensively. I believe Spiky Shield or something like that. Let's see. Turtonator. Shell Armor is actually really nice though, so you don't get crit if you bring him defensively. But oh, I totally missed something here. Turtonator has Rapid Spin, so that alleviates a decent amount of pressure for Volibee here, and his team not being forced to bring Volibee 100%. He could opt to bring Turtonator and just make sure Rock stays off the field, because the opponent is going to want to make sure fails off the field, so he doesn't need to worry too much about bringing Defog. Turtonator being a little bit annoying as defensive Pokemon, with the ability to have Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, got here. That's the move, Shell Trap, that I was looking for. Fills attack from its opponent this turn before it can execute the move. That is 150 base power, fire special move. It's a little bit wonky to get off, but still has the ability to use it if he wants. But generally, the Rapid Spin, the Toxic, or Will-O-Wisp is what it's going to be bringing as defensive option. The Rapid Spin is actually really, really nice from him, alleviating that pressure on Volibee. So it does have Bulk Up too, which is kind of interesting. It does have some decent physical moves here. Head Smash, Heat Crash, Earthquake, Dragon Tail. Now that's something to think about. Stone Edge. With its base 135 defense, I would think about that. But as for the Turtonator being an option defensively, there isn't really much else that I can mention on defense here. 7, average. His team's going to be hard to break through defensively just because of the Veil. It's going to make every single one of his Pokemon bulky. Not to mention, all of them are bulky already. So that's why his defense is rated as 7, barring Zangoose not being like bulky. But yeah, that is why it's a 7. The Veil really brings everything together on his team, so I expect that to be brought almost every time. There's no reason he shouldn't. But speed, I rated a 7. Now, the reason his speed is a 7, you're looking at his team, is like, his team's really dang slow outside of Zangoose and maybe Blastoise here, and Passimian, but he has the option to run Trick Room and to be able to utilize it really well. Similar to Robin's team last draft, it might have not been fast, but with the ability to use Trick Room, it makes his team fast, because the slower you are, the more opportunity you have to go first. So basically reversing it. So if you're slow, you're now fast. If you're fast, you're now slow. So that really works great for his team, with Diancie, Doublade, Lurantis, Turtonator all being below base 50, I believe, in speed. So he's generally going to be outspeeding anything with Trick Room up. So that is going to be really strong to his team. Not sure if he's noticed that that's what he has going here, but definitely a really, really great speed control option for his team. So aside from that, he has Shell Smash and Blastoise, Choice Scarf Passimian, and Zangoose, who actually has a decent speed tier, I believe. It's 90. Yeah, base 90, so that rounds out to 306. So that's pretty good in a low tier draft like this. Outside of that, though, the Trick Room, I think, is the most viable option, unless he's opting to bring Shell Smash Blastoise. Even then, Trick Room could be the primary option for his team, and Shell Smash Blastoise could be the fallback, which I would really like to see utilize in his team building in one of these matches, if it works out well. So next up though, we have hazards, which I scored a 6. Like we've said many times earlier, he really doesn't have too much options to get hazards off the field reliably. Wallaby being pretty reliable with Eviolite, but once the Eviolite goes off, this becomes a not fully evolved Pokemon that has pretty bad stats against a Pokemon in the tier 3 or tier 4 sections. But with Rapid Spin, Defog on Volibee, and I mean Defog on Lurantis, which I don't expect him to see, and then able to pressure the opponent to defog by setting up Veil and rocks of his own, I think he will be okay with hazards. But again, he's only able to set up rocks with Diancie. He doesn't have the most reliable options to get screens or rocks off. So that leaves me to put him at a 6. So his team also really doesn't appreciate rocks on his side of the field, as his team really doesn't have reliable recovery or wish passers. So yeah, not too much to mention. Rounded off at a 6 there. Last up, we have momentum. Now this score 7 is heavily based on the Shell Smashers and the Toxic boost, and the ability to snowball, namely with the Contrary Lurantis as well. That's basically where that 7 comes from. Because as for like momentum in terms of U-turn, Volt Switch, or Flip Turn, he really doesn't have much. He's got U-turn and Volibee, U-turn and Passimian, and Flip Turn and Blastoise. Again, I don't see the Flip Turn on Blastoise as useful as for attacks, for coverage attacks. The U-turn in Passimian and Volibee, it's okay. Passimian's great to scout for. Volibee to get in a slow U-turn. Actually not bad for, either Lurantis to start setting up or Blastoise to come in free. But yeah, the momentum in terms of snowballing is quite high on his team, and that leaves me to rate it a 7. So definitely don't let this team get into advantage with Blastoise coming in for free or Lurantis coming in for free, because that is opening you up to probably lose 1 or 2 Pokemon, if not lose right out. So overall, 35. I think his team is a team that could surprise a lot of people if played correctly. So I would really like to see Louis shape up his team and figure it out before he makes any drastic trades. Since we only have 3, I think he's totally okay to stay with this team right now and figure out that Trick Room strategy and how to bring Blastoise into that Trick Room, maybe as a secondary option, or use Zangoose as a cleaner. But I'd really like to see him shape up this team. I think it'll surprise a lot of people. But yeah, that sums it up for today, you guys. Hopefully get that next one out on time tomorrow at 7 a.m. like I always do. But on to the next one.